Great. Well, if you weren't here last Sunday, I launched the Go and Grow project, and you would have received a Go and Grow pack. If you weren't here, the video of that presentation will be on the website tomorrow. And it is worth having a look at because it'll give you the full context of what we're doing. Also, if you weren't here, or that you've lost your launch pack, or you used your launch pack for some inappropriate purpose and you need another one, or you just so love the launch pack that you want a second one, could you raise your hand and the team are coming around and they'll give you a new pack. Now, in addition to that, for everyone, we have an extra sheet for your pack this week, which is sheet 7, which is a guide to helping us decide how much we should give. So the team are coming around and giving out sheet 7, and that is for everyone, okay? And you can just add it to your pack. If you haven't brought it with you, you can add it to your pack when you get home. But hopefully that'll be a useful sheet to help you seek God for what you should give. Okay, so last week we laid out the plan. The plan is to relocate the church to the high road, to a much more high-profile location, where we're planning to buy an enormous office block called Solar House. And then we're going to convert it and extend it to make it suitable for our church and sell this site. What will it cost? Well, let's have a look at what the cost is. This is a hugely ambitious scheme, and so not surprisingly, the cost is incredibly high. So if you look at the bottom figure, you think, oh my goodness, that's absolutely ridiculous. But don't focus on that too much, because a good proportion of the amount that we have to spend to achieve this, we're going to raise through the selling of our Holden Road site. But it's not going to be enough, so we're going to have to raise money through other means, and the bottom line is that we're going to have to raise £3.5 million. We have the next slide. £3.5 million from giving, from direct donations. And that is the biggest project that we have ever done at St. Barnabas. And you may say, that is complete madness. And I confess, I look at that figure and I think, well, maybe it is. But I speak to other church leaders of churches our size or smaller, and time and again, I've heard stories of churches raising this kind of figure or more. And so I know a number of churches that have done this in the recent past. So I know it is possible, even though when I look at it, I think that's an incredible figure. How are we going to do it? Well, if we go on to the next slide, you will see what we call a giving pyramid, where we break it down. Because in this project, we are all going to learn to give. And we are all going to learn to trust God in the way that we've never trusted God before. And it's going to be incredibly exciting, because through that process, we are going to grow. We're going to grow spiritually. We're going to grow in our walk with Jesus. Because you cannot become more like Jesus without learning to give. So let's just look at this pyramid, and you can see the little figures represent each of us, and different people give different amounts, and it all tots up to what we need to raise. So let's see an example. We'll just float in the red man. This might be you. Bing, there you go. And that person, for instance, is one of 18 people who has given £15,000 to the project. That could be you. So you need to start thinking about, where are you in this pyramid? And the wonderful thing is that this can involve anybody. It can involve absolutely everybody. Everyone can give something. We go to the next slide. Everyone can give something. It is a myth to think that because you're poor, or because you're bankrupt, or because you just don't think you've got any money, that you cannot give anything. Everyone can give something, particularly if it's spread over 3 years. And we're encouraging people to think in that time scale, that that's the time scale of the project, that it can be spread over 3 years, and we can all be involved in that. And in one sense, it doesn't matter what the amount is, it matters what's in your heart. You remember Jesus with the widow? She gave a couple of pennies, a tiny, tiny amount, and Jesus picked her out as an example of sacrificial giving that was honoring to God. That could be you. We go on to the next one. That's right. 2 Corinthians 9 verse 7 says, each of you should give what you've decided in your heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. You know, I'm anticipating an outbreak of cheerfulness around St. Barnabas. Because when people start to give, they start to get happy. Because the happiest people on earth are the most generous people on earth. And the most miserable people on earth tend to be the misers. Because, do you notice that word is the same root? Miser and miserable, they belong together. Whereas when we start to give, our hearts just well up with joy. I'm not going to pressurize anyone to give, because pressurized giving is not good. God wants cheerful giving because he's interested in what's going on in our hearts. Okay, we're going to have 3 principal ways to give. We have the next slide. First way is through one-off gifts. It could be that you've got a rainy day fund, that you've got some savings or some investments, or it could be that you've got something to sell. You've got that old Stradivarius sitting in the cupboard getting dusty, or you've got, you've got some jewelry or something that you could sell, or it could be that you've got some equity in your house, that you've owned your house for quite a long time, you've got quite a small mortgage, and you could remortgage your house and give some of that. So you could give a one-off gift. Second way to give is through extra regular giving over 36 months, over 3 years. Now I say extra regular giving because we mustn't stop our regular pledged giving to St. Barnabas, because that would be mad, wouldn't it? Because the church, the one thing that we're trying to build up, would be destroyed because we wouldn't have enough money to run the mission and ministry of the church. So we mustn't stop our regular giving to the church, but we give extra for a period of 36 months. And everybody can be involved in this. You know, if we all doubled our giving for the next 3 years, we would raise the vast majority of what we need. We'd just do it just by that. Well, that wouldn't be so bad, would it? Okay, the third way to give is through interest-free loans. Obviously, if we're receiving gifts over a 36-month period and we need to run the project now, we need some loans to cover the amounts as they come in. So whilst the interest-free loans won't add to the total, it won't add to the 3.5 million we need to raise, it will enable us to get on and do the project now. So we need those interest-free loans. So we are encouraging us, firstly, that we all get involved, and we're talking about equal sacrifice, but different amounts. Clearly, not everybody can give the same amount. some people are on low incomes. They cannot give the same amount as somebody who is on a very high income. So what we're looking for is equal sacrifice, but different amounts. You couldn't ask a child to give as much as a salary-earning adult. But I had one child come to me, and she emptied her piggy bank, and she gave everything that she had. I mean, everything. How many of us would be prepared to do that? We can learn so much from our children. They are incredibly generous. We can all give something. It's equal sacrifice, but different amounts. And then the other thing we're encouraging is to ask everybody to consider giving in all three ways. A one-off gift, a extra regular for 36 months, and an interest-free loan. Now, one of those ways will suit you better than the other two, in all probability. So we're all different in that. Some people who have got a really high income but haven't got any savings will say, well, I can do the regular giving, but the other ones don't suit me quite as well. I can only give a very small one-off. Other people who are on low incomes but have got a few investments, say, they could say, well, I'll do a lot on the one-off, but I can't do so much on the regular. So different ways will suit different people. Now, I'm going to tell you how much Jane and I have decided to give. I confess I'm not comfortable with this because I'm an Englishman, but I know that as leader of St. Barnabas, I have to set an example. Paul said, follow me as I follow Christ. And in the Greek, it literally means imitate me as I imitate Christ. So leadership is not meant to be comfortable. I know that. And I know that some of you will criticize me for this. Some of you will think that I'm showing off, or you'll be offended by it. But I'm not going to shirk my duty as your leader. Generally in England, we like secretive giving. And we love to quote Matthew 6, verse 3, where Jesus says, do not let your right hand know what your left hand is doing. We love that verse, don't we? And it is right that we should never, never do our giving in order to earn the applause of others. That's what Jesus is getting at there. That we shouldn't do it in order to gain favor or for reasons of pride. And I'm grateful to God that actually Jane and I decided what to give prior to us deciding that we had to tell the church what we were giving. So we made that decision without thinking in those terms. The rest of the Bible, apart from that one verse, teaches that giving should be accountable and transparent. And so we look at all sorts of examples. For instance, Paul cited the generosity of the Macedonians when he was teaching the Corinthians on what they should give. Jesus, take this. This is an interesting one. Jesus actually sat down opposite the offering basket and watched the amounts that everybody put in, and then picked out an example citing the exact amount that the person had given. How would you fancy doing that? It's really different to our culture, isn't it? Probably the most striking example of this is King David, because the greatest offering ever given was a one-off offering in one day for a building project. And it was for the building of the temple in 1 Chronicles 29. And on that day, they gave, in today's money, something just over £6.8 billion. One offering. It's never been surpassed since. And they started that offering with King David announcing to the whole congregation what he personally had decided to give. And he personally had decided to give 100 tons of gold and 235 tons of silver. And I've looked on the commodities market, and the price this week for that amount would be around £2.5 billion. So he announced that, and then the leaders of the families all came and gave their offering. So he set an example, and he said, I'm sacrificing for this. Now I'm inviting you to sacrifice, in effect. Now we're wanting to raise a tiny fraction of 6.8 billion, aren't we? Tiny, tiny fraction of what they raised. But as leaders of this community, Jane and I want to be generous and do that. And when we started to pray about this a number of weeks ago now, I came up with a figure, and I thought it was exceptionally generous. And we prayed about it, and then we went away, and we both had a niggle that God wanted us to give more. And independently, we sensed God saying to us we had to give more than double what we'd originally decided. And we came back together and discovered we'd been thinking exactly the same thing, and it was out of that we came up with what we believe God has called us to give. And so we have decided that we are going to give £59,000 to this project. That's partly through a one-off gift. We've got a policy that we've been paying into for 25 years, which is coming to maturity, and we're going to give all of that and some other funds that we've got. And it's partly through extra giving over 36 months as well, and we will try to find some extra money for an interest-free loan as well. The PCC, as the leaders of the community, have so far, and not all the PCC have come back to me, most of them have said they are going to come back to me, but they haven't done yet. They have so far pledged £275,000 to the Go and Go project by way of setting an example of leadership to the church. Now, it is your turn. Now, don't worry, we are not going to publish everybody's gift. It is going to be private. Your gift, obviously, there'll be a number of people, Colin and myself and some of the admin team, who will, by necessity, need to know what you are giving. But beyond that, it will be a private gift. Now, if you've got your sheets now, sheet 7, that should have circulated, I have tried to lay down some guideline on how to decide what to give. And in there, I've highlighted that we can decide by reason and we can decide by revelation. And I think that you need to try and do both. And so when you decide by reason, you sit down, you work out how much you've got, you work out what your outgoings are, you work out how you can reduce your expenditure, perhaps how you can increase your income, and you work out what's left over, and you come to a conclusion. This is what I could afford. That's working out by reason. And you need to do that. But then there is giving by revelation. And that is to sit down and pray and say, Lord, what do you want me to give? And unlike giving by reason, that involves faith. It involves taking a step of faith because you're stepping out beyond what you know exactly how you're going to fulfill. And God will speak to you. And I know that God is an exceptionally generous God, and He wants us to be like Him, and so He's going to make us exceptionally generous and to walk that walk of faith. We are asking you to sacrifice, and I make no apology for that, because we're asking you to sacrifice for the greatest cause in the world, the kingdom of God. And we're asking you to give to the one organization in the world that is the hope of the world, the church. There is no greater cause than this. There is no better way of spending your money. What else could you spend your money on? Well, you could flitter it away on yourself, and that would just be gone, wouldn't it? Whereas this is investing in something that could have an impact for eternity. Following Jesus is going to cost you everything that you've got. And I don't really want to say this, but I'll say it anyway. You know, if you want to just come along to St. Bees and sit back and keep your chair warm and not really get involved, you're going to find the next little while of our church quite uncomfortable, because we love you, but God wants more. He wants more. Because this church is going to keep stretching us, keep pushing out, keep attempting the impossible, keep expecting great things of God and attempting great things for God. And we're not going to give up, no matter how much it costs in time, energy, and money. And so I want to challenge you today to seek after God and to give everything. It's an incredible adventure we're on, and God is going to do wonderful things. Practically speaking, we're going to be pledging over the next 3 weeks, and we'll have a big bucket or something where you can come and pledge, and we'll pray over those. And then on the 19th of October, we will announce the wonder that has happened amongst us as we tot up the total of what we have given.
All right.
Salah.